A Democratic proposal that would expand the child tax credit for 1 year, giving qualifying families up to $300 per child per month. It's part of the Biden administration's coronavirus relief rescue package that's aimed at helping Americans weather this pandemic and its economic fallout. So joining us now to break down the status of that relief package, Jared Bernstein, the White House Council of Economic Advisors. Thanks for being with us, Jared. And thanks. And let me ask you, now that impeachment's former President Trump's behind us, the Biden stimulus rescue bill can take center stage on Capitol Hill. So, realistically, when do you think this can get passed? When would Americans see benefits? And do you think any Republicans are going to sign on?
Well, let me start with the last point. Whether any Republicans are going to sign on is yet to be seen. But when we talk about this budget process called reconciliation, meaning one way to pass the bill without 60 votes, that doesn't exclude Republicans. This is a process that you've probably heard discussed in recent weeks up on the Hill. And in the past, that process has often been bipartisan. So Republicans could come over and help, even if we go that process route. And I think what's important there is to recognize that this is not a partisan issue when you get outside of Washington. The president has met with business leaders, bipartisan mayors. He's met with governors from both sides of the aisle. He's talked to experts and economists, including, by the way, this idea has been endorsed by the chief economist for President Trump and President Bush. Just this morning in my Washington Post, I read a quote from the mayor of Fresno, California, who's a Republican, who said, and I just thought this was very articulate, so I wanted to read it back to you. He says, it's not a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. It's a public health issue. It's an economic issue, and it's a public safety issue. That's the American Rescue Plan. And whether you're a D or an R, you want to reopen schools, you want to get relief to people, you want to get shots in arms, and you want people and businesses back to work.
So you've gotten some pushback, Jared, to the $1.9 trillion size of this package, and not just from Republicans. Economists like Larry Summers, who served in Democratic administrations, warn that this could cause inflation and that it's at least 3 times the projected economic shortfall from the pandemic. So why insist on this high number?
Well, I think the way to look at this, and Larry's an old friend of mine, and we've argued about this and other things, and I still have a lot of respect for Larry, but we disagree on this point. The way to look at this is not the kind of top-down approach that he employed there, but to look at what it will take to get to the other side of this crisis, to finally deal COVID-19 the knockout blow that Americans like the person you just interviewed a second ago are desperately looking for us to do. That has heretofore not occurred. We've often gone too small. We've had these air pockets where something faded without something else coming into play. So what the president did here was build a package from the bottom up with child care, with help to people who need relief checks, with help to people who are trying to get their kids back to school, help to states and localities who have to, at the end of the day, control the virus and distribute and produce, get the vaccine into people's arms. And if you do that bottom-up exercise, you get to $1.9 trillion. And the risk here is not going too big. The risk here is going too small. And that's a risk we've seen occurring far too often. And the president is intent on putting that risk behind us.
And Senator Bernie Sanders has promised that idea to raise the minimum wage across the country to $15 an hour, that should be included in the final version. That's going to require all 50 Democrats to stick together. And how likely do you think that is? Did the president support that?
Yes, the president unequivocally supports it, and he has since the campaign. He's always been committed, since he ran for president, to raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And in fact, that's why he put this in his very first significant legislative proposal. And the reason is because, put this budget process issue aside for a second, because I think what the American people think about this is that should a frontline worker, should someone who's a fulfillment worker in a warehouse, a home health aide, someone who's helping control the virus or distribute the vaccine, should that person make a living wage? $15 an hour gets you closer to that. relative to $7.25 an hour, which is the current federal minimum wage. And I think most people will agree that those essential workers who are just putting themselves and their families at risk to help us get through this crisis need and deserve a raise. That's where President Biden has long been, and he will continue to fight for that until that goal is realized.
And another point of contention now, or a big question, I guess, at least, is who gets those $1,400 checks? The House Democrats' proposal would phase it out for individuals making more than $75,000 and couples making more than $150,000. On the Senate side, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin proposed capping those payments for individuals making more than $50,000 and couples at $100,000. Where do you draw the line?
Well, I think the answer to that question is going to come out of precisely these exchanges that you've talked about. And the president has been very encouraging about precisely these types of exchanges. And by the way, not just with Democrats, but with Republicans as well. And what he has said and what Jen Psaki, our press secretary, has said is that it is essential that middle and low income people get these relief checks, and that they but the idea that they go to people with incomes of $250,000 or $300,000, you've heard the president say that that's not something that he considers to be, essential to this. So the idea that you would phase those payments out at income levels that are north of $250K is something that's been under discussion. But what's not under discussion is whether middle-income families need this help. That they do, and they'll tell you that themselves, and I believe them, and more importantly, President Joe Biden believes them.
So, Jared, bottom line, when do you think this gets passed, and does it get passed with bipartisan support?
I'm not going to give a date because I'm an economist. I'm not a political nose counter. I can only tell you that the urgency with which President Biden wants to get this across the legislative goal line is directly proportional to its importance in terms of controlling the virus, distributing, producing the vaccine, getting shots in arms, and finally launching a robust, inclusive, and racially equitable economic recovery.
All right, Jared Bernstein, thanks very much for that, and good luck.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.